Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It is Flame once again from Team Legends and welcome back to another Union Arena deck discussion video. We are in the home stretch, only 2 decks remaining in Hunter x Hunter that we have to go through for our deck discussions, and these ones are the ones that are the highly anticipated but not highly regarded decks, so we're going to get right into the all-important yellow decks from Hunter x Hunter Volume 2. As always, if you enjoy the video at any point, please leave a like and a comment down below and subscribe to the channel if you find yourself coming back and enjoying the content. And without further ado, I introduce to you Yellow Razor. Yellow Razor was one of the 2 yellow decks that was released in Hunter x Hunter Volume 2. Among this and the Yellow Dodgeball Team deck, Razor was seen as arguably the worst deck that we've ever seen come out. It followed under the trend of Volume 2 decks that likewise to Jujutsu Kaisen, Code Geass, Bleach, and Demon Slayer. The Volume 2 decks on their initial release weren't very powerful, and Razor was no exception to that rule. Razor only focuses on the 1 raid in the deck, the 5-cost Razor, to be its big power threat, and it doesn't really do much besides that. It has no impact, it has no damage too, it has no double attack, and only 1 raid in the deck. People really didn't think that anything was going to become of this deck, and really laugh at it as one of the worst decks that we've seen in the game. I, however, was not going to let that pessimistic attitude rule me. I went to work with this deck, finding different combinations, strategies, play testing, theory crafting, everything I could to rack my brain and find the best combination of cards to make up a 50-card deck. And I think what we've got here is pretty solid. I think this is about the best choice we've got for Razor and his Nen Beast. The strategy of the Razor and his Nen Beast deck really focuses on strengthening the Nen Beasts that are big enough to support the Razor. Every Nen Beast has an ability that they gain BP if they have face down cards underneath them, which usually is satiated by the 0-cost Razor Nen Beast that when sidelined is able to put itself face down under any other Nen Beast on the field. The longer they're on the field, the stronger your board gets. As always, we will go through the card by card discussion of this deck, the ratios for all the cards and their inclusion in this deck, and if you want to skip ahead at any point to our randomly generated 3-round tournament to see how Razor does against these 3 decks, there are timestamps listed below in the description where you can skip right ahead to see just how well this deck will perform. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. Leading things off, of course, is the all-important zeros of the deck, and this deck is only playing 1 variation of zeros. It is going to be playing 14 copies of the 0-cost Razor's Nen Beast. This was the first card that came over to the United States that lifted the restriction of a maximum of 4 copies of a card in the deck. Other ones including, of course, the Shadow Soldiers from the Shadow Army deck of solo leveling. Razor's Nen Beast is a 0-cost card that you could play up to 14 copies in it, making one of the most copies of a card that you can play in a deck. Its first line of text is going to be a recurring theme that you're going to see a lot of all the other Nen Beasts in the deck. During your turn, this character gains 1000 BP for each face-down card under it. Now, how do you get face-down cards underneath it? Well, that is its secondary effect. When sidelined, you may place this card face down under another Nen Beast affinity card on your field. Basically, this card is a dual-purpose card. It's a 0 cost, so it can get you started with a lot of your plays, and at any point you can move it to the front line and use it as a cheap blocker. For when it gets sidelined, you're able to place it under another Razor's Nen Beast on your field, so it can go up to 2500 or more on the next turn, or you can place it under one of the other 2 Nen Beasts that we'll be getting to later on in the deck. The only thing hurting this card is the fact that it is a get trigger. Unlike the Shadow Soldiers and the Loki from Code Geass Rose of the Recapture over in Japan, the 0-cost cards that are able to exceed 4 copies are usually draw triggers, but Razor's Nen Beast, being the first one of its kind, had the get trigger. Once the developers realized that 12 or more get triggers on the 0-cost wasn't exactly powerful enough for the deck, they went ahead and changed it for the upcoming Shadow Soldier for the solo leveling deck and the Loki for Rose of the Recapture, as they both now have draw triggers, which makes the decks just that more powerful. It's especially detrimental because you want the Nen Beasts in your sideline for future effects, but the fact that they have get triggers means they're going to go to your hand, so you then have to play them, and then they get sidelined, and then you can get them back from the sideline. All in all, it's just really hard to get things going, and obviously this was because it was the initial test run for cards of this type, so it obviously was not going to be perfect, but it definitely does hinder the deck from being just a little bit more powerful. Overall, I still enjoy the design of this card. It is the 0-cost and the only one you're going to need in the deck at 14 copies, so really can cut down on some of your 1-cost cards that we'll get to here in a second. Speaking of the 1-cost cards, we are going to be playing 4 of them. It is 4 copies of the 1-cost Razor, who is essentially your raid target for the deck. So tacking on the 14 other Razor's Nen Beasts you are playing beforehand, you are now playing a total of 8 18 get triggers of cards that have 1 or less required energy. His ability doesn't really come up that often. During your turn, if you have a combined total of 2 or more Nen Beast affinity cards and face down cards under characters on your field, this character gains 1000 BP. Now obviously this is really good for early game state. If you want to push aggressively with Razor, he's more likely than not going to be that 3000 BP unless you find just Razors in your early going, but that makes it really powerful on your turn to swing, not exactly for your opponent however, as it'll be 2000 BP during their turn. He's the raid target with that get trigger, so you want to play it as much as possible, as some of the other Razors we're playing in the deck are cards you really don't want to be raiding on top of. We now move on to the 2-cost cards in the deck. For character-wise, we are playing 4 2-cost characters. We are playing a sight card as well that we'll get to here in a moment. We're starting things off, of course, with 4 copies of the 2-cost number 0. This card is one of the 2 Nen Beast affinities that you're going to be using a lot of your Razor's Nen Beast to stack underneath. Identical to all the other Nen Beast affinity cards, number 0's first line of text says during your turn, this card gains 1000 BP for each face down card under it, meaning with just 1 face down card underneath it, he's already a 3500 BP character on your turn. This card is also the main searcher in the deck. When played, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You reveal up to 1 Nen Beast affinity or dodgeball court card among them and add it to your hand. Place the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order, and if you added a card to your hand, you place 1 card from your hand into the sideline. Now, unless you go 5 deep and find exactly Razor in your event cards, this number 0 is always going to be able to find something. And even if you add something like a simple 0-cost Razor Nen Beast, you can simply pitch it back to the sideline because it's really where they want to be in order to utilize more of your card's effects. It's an extra bonus that he does come with an active trigger on a searcher for being 1 more required energy to play. Typically, decks have the 1-cost cards that are a searcher, but this one being a 2-cost, goes 5 deep, and has a trigger. It's an overall solid card. As we move out of the 2-cost characters, we move into the 3-cost characters, and starting things off is our 3rd Nen Beast in the deck, 4 copies of the 3-cost double energy generating number 13. Identical to the Razor's Nen Beast and the number 0, number 13 states that during your turn, this character gains 1000 BP for each face down card under it, meaning at its 3000 base, just 1 face down card underneath it makes it a 4000 BP on a 3 required energy character. And more times than not, as soon as he is played, he's going to get that effect. When played, place up to 1 Nen Beast affinity card from your sideline face down under this character. It's not restricted to any specific Nen Beast, so you can put another copy of number 13 underneath it if one's residing in your sideline, number 0, or a Razor's Nen Beast, which is why I mentioned earlier that you want to get the Nen Beast into the sideline as fast as possible. You don't want number 13 to miss the activation of its when played ability since you don't have any Nen Beast in your sideline in order to utilize its effect and make it big enough. But it does happen a few times if you find him in the early game states, so the sooner you can find those Nen Beasts and get them in the sideline, the better off you'll be. He is also a double energy generating card, and the Nen Beast affinity, we're maxing him out at 4 copies. Our other double energy generator that we are playing in this deck is 4 copies of the 3-cost double energy generating Bisky. For the longest time, I had never thought to include Bisky in this deck. Because she is not a Nen Beast affinity or a Razor, I really didn't feel like she had a place. It wasn't until last week when I looked at this deck again ahead of making the video that I found out that my deck does not have any draw triggers. Through all the Nen Beasts, all the Razors, and every card in the deck, there were no draw triggers. So I thought to myself, what card would be great to put in as a draw trigger that would also help the deck out? And that's when I landed on the Bisky. Not only is Bisky great as a double energy generator, so you're not just relying on the number 13 to play it, she also has the when played ability that you can draw a card. She also has the draw triggers, so if she's hit out of life, you draw another card. And she has an ability as an activate main, you can switch her to resting and sideline her to make room on your energy line and draw a card. As soon as I put this card in the deck, I started seeing massive success with it. I started seeing my cards a lot more frequently. I wasn't starved for energy by moving the number 13 up. And overall, I was just having a lot more fun with the deck with her included in it. I never thought the inclusion of 1 card in the deck, especially outside of the Nen Beast affinity, would make such a difference with the deck. Overall, I think this Bisky is a really solid card and a great inclusion for this deck at the maximum of 4 copies. Our final 3-cost character that we're playing in the deck is 2 copies of the 3-cost Razor. Razor is put into the deck mostly as a raid target, but he does have a useful ability. As an activate main ability, only on the front line and a hard once per turn of the character, you may sideline 1 Nen Beast affinity card on your field. If you do, draw a card and give this character 1000 BP until the end of the turn. The versatility of this card is really strong, as he's also a nullify impact, which is the case for pretty much all the Razors outside of the raid target. The only thing hindering him is the fact that he does not have the trigger. I wanted to play this at the maximum of 4 copies, and he was at that until we made the change with the Bisky, and honestly, losing 2 of them, I never really found it as too much of a downside. He is very searchable as you're able to draw more cards in the deck thanks to the inclusion of the Bisky, and if you find him, it's great. If you don't find him, it's really not the end of the world for the deck. You're able to finagle with the ratios of this card in your own deck. If you want to play it at the maximum of 4, you can. If you don't want to play it at all, that's fine too. But for this video, we are playing the Razor at only 2 copies. Now we move into the 4 cost and above cards that are going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting for your deck, starting things off with the color of the deck. 4 copies of the 4 required energy, 2 action cost color Razor. This Razor has a wall of text on him to say the least, but his ability is actually quite powerful for both offensive and defensive capabilities. Requiring 2 action to play is a little bit rough, especially because he doesn't play himself to active. However, his ability kind of makes up for all of those costs. When played, you may sideline 1 Nen Beast affinity card on your field. If you do, choose up to 1 character on your opponent's front line and switch it to resting. It will remain set to resting next time it would be switched to active. Choose one of your AP and switch it to active. So essentially this line of text and effect basically makes it a 4-1 Razor instead of the 4-2, plus you're able to switch something resting on your opponent's front line, plus you're able to sideline one of your Nen Beast cards, which if you choose the Razor's Nen Beast, the 0 cost, you're able to stack it under another Nen Beast on your field, thus boosting that character by 1000 BP. He also has an effect that when blocking is pretty powerful and can spare you some life. When blocking, if your opponent's attacking character has impact, this character gains 2000 BP until the end of the turn. Now what this means is that unless your opponent's character is attacking with 6000 or more with impact, this character will be able to block said impact and spare you a life, making it a 6000 blocker. Of course, being a yellow color means that you're going to want to see it as frequently as possible, as the yellow colors are pretty much the strongest colors in the game, and obviously a Razor as well means he's a raid target. No surprise he's in here at the maximum. We now move into the big boss of the deck, the only 5 cost character that we are playing in the deck, 4 copies of the 5 cost Raid Razor. Razor on a base with his raid ability has Nullify Impact, as is the case with a lot of other Razors that are already included in this deck. His ability works as a pseudo removal card. When played, choose up to 1 character on your opponent's front line with BP equal to or less than 1000 multiplied by the combined total number of Nen Beast affinity cards and face down cards under characters on your front line and sideline it. This card works as a double-edged sword. You could have it where you have your entire front line full of Nen Beasts with face down cards underneath them, and you could remove some pretty powerful cards on your opponent's front line. However, if you don't have those Nen Beasts, or if your front line is polluted with Razors, you're not really going to be removing anything. He really is just a one-trick pony in a deck that really wants to just keep cycling through its resources, so the ability that when played may be able to sideline a character, maybe he doesn't, and after that, you don't necessarily need to keep him around for long. It works to your favor that he's not exactly one of the cards that needs to be around for a long period of time, so as soon as he's used his effect, you can just block with him whenever you want. I've started coming around a little bit more to this card as I've been able to find more power with the deck, being able to move a lot more Nen Beasts to the front line thanks to the inclusion of the Bisky. And overall, it's the only raid in the deck, so you want to play it at the maximum of 4 copies. I mentioned earlier that we are playing more 2-cost cards, and these are the sight cards in the deck, 2 copies of the 2-cost sight card Dodgeball Court. The Dodgeball Court sight card being searchable off the number 0 ability means you don't necessarily have to play it at the maximum of 4 copies. It's a 2-cost sight card with a get trigger, meaning if you hit it out of life, you can grab it as well, and automatically plays itself set to active on the field. It has 2 abilities, both of which require it to switch to resting, but are not a hard once per turn. As an activate main ability, you can switch it to resting and place 1 Nen Beast affinity card from your sideline face down under a Nen Beast affinity card on your field. This means that if you have any Nen Beast residing in your sideline and you want to boost one your one, say on the front line, you can switch this card to resting and put it face down underneath that character to give it an extra 1000 BP. However, the true power of this card lies in its second ability. It's an activate main ability that switches it to resting, places a card from your hand into the sideline, and pays it AP to activate. Once the conditions are met, you play 1 Nen Beast affinity card from your sideline set to resting onto your field. The key wording of this card's second ability is it does not have to meet the required energy necessary to play, meaning you can play back any of your Nen Beasts from the sideline even if you don't have the required energy to play it normally from your hand. I really enjoy this card and always love activating its ability, especially if you get more than 1 on the board at the same time. It's not a hard once per turn, turn, so you can activate the ability of one of them, and then you can activate the ability of another one on the same turn. It is a very searchable sight card, so we're only playing it at 2. If you want to play it at more in your decks, you're more than welcome to do so, because this card definitely has a lot of uses. Last couple cards to touch on here are the event cards of the deck, starting things off with the special of the deck, 4 copies of the 4-cost special Spike. Spike is essentially a cookie cutter special in the game. Choose one character with 3,000 or less BP on your opponent's front line and sideline. If Razor's on your field, 5,000 or less instead. And finally, of course, is 4 copies of the final in the deck, Bisky's Meal. So once again, here's the full breakdown of the card by card that we will be playing in a randomly generated 3-round tournament. Honestly, I feel very excited about this deck. It is very streamlined, it knows what it needs to do, and honestly, I think we have a chance to get at least one game of the 3 rounds we're going to be playing. So I hope you're all as excited as I am. Let's get into the games. It is once again time to turn our attention back to the all-knowing wheel of Union Arena deck to see just how well our 3-round tournament is going to be and who the first-round opponent will be against our Razor deck. And it doesn't exactly look like it's going to be the easiest of opening round matchups, as we'll be taking on one of the top decks in the current meta, the Purple Shadow Army deck from Solo Leveling. This deck might actually be an interesting matchup to start things off for Razor. The biggest problem that the Shadow Army deck puts out is that a lot of smaller numbers that can't be blocked by larger characters thanks to the Kai Cell. Unfortunately for the Shadow Army deck, our Razor deck does have big characters, but they're not necessarily on the opponent's turn. They only get large on our turn, so they're able to make those easy blocks against the Shadow Soldiers. Obviously, winning the die roll and going first is the strength of the Razor's deck, as they want to get going early and often with their swings, starting of course with a Razor's Nen Beast on the back line, and we're going to be able to refill our energy line with another Nen Beast and our first copy of the Razor. Going in and swinging for an early damage and hitting an active trigger out of life on an open board state is pretty good, and now our opponent will be able to follow suit as well, putting up one of their smaller blockers, which will contest 15 to 15. It is the first matchup and already a kind of fated matchup, as it is the start of the 0 cost with 14 allowed in the deck with the Razor's Nen Beast versus the 12 in the deck for the Shadow Army. We're going to be able to refill our back line with 2 Razor's Nen Beasts and our first copy of number 0, going top 5 in the deck and finding a number 13 among our 5 cards, adding to the hand and pitching a Razor's Nen Beast into the sideline. Razor now on the front line is going to be able to be 3,000 BP since there's more than enough Nen Beast affinity cards on the field, swinging in and dealing an early 2 damage and having a nice lead over the Shadow Army deck, which is really something Razor wanted to take advantage of here in the early game state. The faster you can get going against a deck as powerful as this one, the better off you'll be. See a copy of the Shadow Monarch being played, playing back the Igris from the sideline and resculpting the top 2 cards of the deck thanks to the Shadow Soldier being played back from the sideline resting due to the Igris' effect. Maybe a little early to see a Raid Jinwoo dropping here, but, you know, stranger things have happened and already spotted on life 6 life to 4. They might choose to go aggressively. We see a copy of Arise being played, then the colored Jinwoo to go the top 3, looking for any card that is a Shadow Army affinity. And they're going to grab the Sight card, the Monarch's Domain, and pitching a Raid Jinwoo off, and now going to raid a Sniping Jinwoo on the back line, restanding both the Kai Cell and the Shadow Soldier played back from the Igris. Shadow Soldier is going to swing in first. It'll be blocked easily by the Razor. And now the Jinwoo will be able to swap with the just attacked character and will snipe the Razor's Nen Beast, which will put itself face down under the number 0, hitting of course with impact and hitting a final out of life. Igris will be able to swing it in and hits a Raid Razor out of life. And now the tide of battle quickly swung back the other way, as it is back to even life at 4 apiece. But our number 0 on the energy line has 2 face down cards underneath it, thanks to both of our Nen Beast gain sideline, so moves up to the front line as a 4,500 character. A little bit of ground to make up here, and we'll see if we have what it takes to bounce back quickly after that big swing. See another copy of number 0 being played, fanning through for the top 5 and grabbing another number 13 from our deck among the 5 cards and adding it to the hand. And of course having to discard as we added one to the hand, pitching off one of our number 13s. We're going to play a copy of number 13 and going to reset a Nen Beast underneath it on the energy line. Generating 5 energy, we could see a Raid Razor dropping here, but it's going to be instead of Bisky's Meal, which will play the Razor. Sideline a Nen Beast, and we'll be able to pop the Igris, or switch the Igris to resting, and then switch an AP back active. Of course, sideline and a Nen Beast is going to stack underneath another Nen Beast on our field. We're going for the number 0 on the back line, and we'll just spike the Jinwoo to take care of that problem. Razor will swing in with 3,000 and hits an active trigger, which will target the Igris, so it will become active on the opponent's turn, and just block out with a Shadow Soldier. Generating 5 energy on the energy line for the Shadow Army deck, they're able to move both Shadow Soldiers up to the front line, play a Monarch's Domain, and then play another Igris from hand, free playing back a Shadow Soldier from the sideline to sculpt the next 2 cards of the deck. So as quickly as we were able to get advantage here, it was quickly swung back the other way, as now, thanks to the Monarch's Domain, the Igris as well as the Shadow Soldiers get an extra 1,000 BP boost. It's going to swing in and won't be able to be blocked by our 4,000 Color Razor. Hits a Draw Biscuit out of life. Igris will be swinging in next with 5,000, will be blocked out by a Razor, and that will do it for the opponent's turn. Lost a couple characters here, but still in pretty good position, all things considered. Generating 4 energy on the energy line, so a Raid Razor just needs 1 more card on the energy line in order to get going. We are going to be moving up the number 0 from the back line, leaving us on 3 energy. Going to play a copy of number 0 on the back line, going top 5 again, looking for any Nen Beast. Instead, we're going for the Dodgeball Court this time, adding it to the hand, and then, of course, going to be pitching a card off from our hand. It's one of the Nen Beasts that we triggered out of life. With generating 4 energy now, we're going to be playing the Color Razor to our front line again, sideline and a Nen Beast on our energy line, switching Igris resting, and we'll restand an action point, then stacking the Nen Beast underneath our number 0, so both of them have 4. Both of them have 4,500 underneath them. And the Dodgeball Court will stack under another one, making it 5,500. Swinging in with the Razor and then hitting in with a number 0 hits a color trigger out of life, so our opponent going to be able to play back a lot of characters from the sideline, as there was a tank and a lot of Shadow Soldiers already in the sideline. And instead we're going to play back the tank. It is at this point that we're really considering if we need to go in for that last swing. Yes, our number 0 is 5,500 BP, but our opponent's board really doesn't have a lot going for it and won't be really that threatening next turn. So instead of going in for the early swing and potentially being able to move a Shadow Soldier up from the energy line, we decide to pass turn. Shadow Soldier will get played off, as there's going to be another colored Jinwoo being played. Goes top 3, and we see a Kaisel, a Tusk, and a Shadow Soldier among the 3 cards. We added the Tusk to the hand, and then of course you have to discard. It's going to discard that Tusk and play another copy of Monarch's Domain. Both of them being able to activate and will boost everything up by 2,000 BP. The Shadow Soldiers will swing first, and Kaisel making it so it's unable to be blocked by our Color Razor. Hits a Spike out of life, and it's going to take care of the Igris. Tank will then swing in next with 4,000 BP, and we'll be choosing to block out with our number 0 to preserve our last life. It is at this point that we just need one way to remove a character on the front line and to make the full push for the final part of the game. Taking an extra draw here, we're going to move number 0 up to the front line. Play a copy of Bisky on the energy line to generate 5 energy. Dodgeball Court will be activated, switching it to resting to stack a Nen Beast underneath our number 0 on the front line. And using the last action to raid the Razor, which will take care of the Igris. It is now an all-out push to try and end the game. We're going to swing in with a Razor and hit a Color Jinwoo out of life. That will not be enough to seal the deal in this game, as a Shadow Soldier will be played back, and we'll restack the top of the deck. And now it's just going to be to swing in to clear out the front line. Number 0 first, and then number 0 again will take care of the other Shadow Soldiers, and the Color Razor will take care of the tank. Very fortuitous situation for us, as we can't really die to impact, as we have 2 essentially nullify impacts on the front line, one with the Razor and the other one in the color that will block. And instead it looks like it's just going to be an all-out push. Kaisel will be swinging in with a double boost of Monarch's Domain. Will be blocked out by number 0. And the Jinwoo unfortunately does not get the boost from the Domain, so he won't be able to swing over anything. So I think this should be able to wrap up the game. We move up the number 0 from the energy line. He's sitting at 4,000 BP. Going to use the Dodgeball Court to make it now 5,000. Playing another number 0 on the energy line, stacking him up to generate 5 energy, and we're just going to spike the Jinwoo just for safety, swinging in 5,000, and that's game 1. With one round out of the way, it is time to turn our attention back to the Wheel of Union Arena decks to see who will be with the second round match to take on our Razor deck, now currently 1-0, and it looks like we'll have a change of pace from a more control style matchup to a speed versus control in the Yellow Tanjiro and Nezuko deck from Demon Slayer, with a few new support cards thanks to Demon Slayer Volume 2. This deck will be a bit of a change-up for Razor, as it likes to have a little bit longer drawn-out games to get your Nen Beast established and get them at larger BP. The problem is that the Yellow Tanjiro deck doesn't allow our opponents to really do anything, as it tends to be more of a blitz deck. Thanks to the Yellow Tanjiro being able to shift things around from the front line and energy line, you're allowed more than 4 attacks at a maximum during your combat phase. So because of that, we have to try and get the early goings and our front lines established quickly against this deck. Winning the die roll obviously is a good start for it, as we're able to play our Razor's Nen Beast on the energy line, our only 0 in the deck, and we might be in a bit of a predicament here as we draw for a turn. We don't have another card to play, but thankfully on the extra draw, we're able to draw into a Razor to establish our energy line. Relying a lot on life here, as we have a lot of get triggers as mentioned back in the deck discussion. This deck is playing a total of 18 get triggers of cards that are 1 or less required energy. And already hitting 1 right off the bat is a Nen Beast, which means we might be able to play a little bit more aggressively as we move a Nen Beast up to the front line. Now be able to establish our energy line, playing a Nen Beast and then another Razor's Nen Beast on the energy line, and then playing a copy of Bisky to draw a card. We're able to swing at 1500 to 1500 BP, hitting a final out of life, quickly dealing a damage right back to the Tanjiro player. But this might be a bit of an issue, as we might be seeing a Ray Tanjiro dropping here that will quicken the pace of the game not in our favor. See a copy of Nezuko being played, which will drop the BP of our Razor's Nen Beast on the front line by 1,000, and instead it looks like they're just going to fill up the energy line using the Nezuko on the energy line to swap with the resting one on the front line, and now everything's just going to be big enough to hit over our poor Nen Beast. Hit in and hit another copy of Razor's Nen Beast out of life, which will stack under 1 on our energy line, and another get trigger for the 1-cost Razor out of our life, so 3 damage taken for our deck, and it's been 3 get triggers, 2 Nen Beast, and 1 Razor. First copy of number 0 being played on the energy line, allowing us to go to the top 5 of the deck and finding a number 13 among the 5 cards and adding to the hand. Of course, we have a lot of cards in our hand to discard, and we're going to pitch off one of our Razor's Nen Beasts that we got off of our life triggers. Play a copy of number 13 on the front line, which will play a face down card underneath it. And then using the last AP, we're going to be playing Bisky's Meal instead. To keep that from happening, we're going to play a copy of Bisky to draw us an extra card. And then using the last AP this time to raid the Razor, as we're able to pop anything on the opponent's front line with 5,000 or less BP, thanks to our front line being full of Nen Beasts. Razor will swing in first, and he hits a yellow color trigger out of life. An opponent not really wanting to rest a Nen Beast is going to choose to rest the already attacking Razor. The 2,500 Nen Beast will hit over the Nezuko, and we'll be able to pass turn, quickly swinging the advantage, at least in a frontline presence, back in our favor, but not necessarily in life, as we're still down 5 life to 4. Let's see the Nezuko being moved up from the energy line, sitting at 3,000 BP. Going to be raiding a copy of Nezuko from the energy line, and then using the final AP to play a Tanjiro on the front line. Still no raid Tanjiro so far. The 3,000 Nezuko will be swinging first. We choose to take the damage and hits a Razor's Nen Beast out of life. Nezuko will be swinging in and swapping the Tanjiros from the front line and energy line. Of course, sitting at 4,000 BP is going to be forced to be blocked by the Nen Beast, and then another Nen Beast will be forced to tank the shot and stack underneath the number 0 on the energy line instead of the number 13 on the front line, as we'll be planning on moving the number 0 up this turn to get a more aggressive frontline presence. Going to move the number 13 or the number 0 up as we're generating 4 energy. Play a copy of Razor's Nen Beast on the energy line, then paying 2 AP to play the color Razor instead, which will sideline the newly played Nen Beast, force the Nezuko into resting and restand an action point as we play the newly sidelined Nen Beast underneath our number 0 on the front line, using the last AP to spike the Nezuko on the front line, and now we'll be able to swing in a little bit more aggressively with 3 bodies. The number 0 swinging in with 4,500 BP, and the number 13 with 5,000 BP hits a yellow color trigger, which will stun our yellow color to prevent it from being switched to active and maybe foiling the Raid Tanjiro's plans if it plans to swing in with impact. Taking an extra draw here, and still no Raid Tanjiro's in our opponent's hand. They're going to be playing a copy of the Tanjiro on the energy line, which will free play a Nezuko and drop the Razor's BP on the front line by 1,000. Playing a total concentration breathing, playing a Tengen on the front line, and then using water breathing to take out our number 0. Unfortunately for them, nothing will be able to attack this turn, as everything is just too small, so we'll be able to take the advantage back to our side, and with a tied life at 3 and the attacking side in our favor, we might actually be able to pull ahead in this game. Play a copy of Razor on the front line, then a Nen Beast on the energy line, using Razor to pop that Nen Beast and draw a card, giving it 1,000 BP, but it doesn't really matter if it's sitting resting, as we're going to play it under our number 13, making it now a 6,000 BP character on the front line. With the choices here, generating 4 energy, we're just going to reset our energy line with a number 13 in case we need to block this turn and move one up for next turn. Razor will swing first, then Razor again, hits a get out of life, and a 6,000 attacking number 13 will be blocked out by Nezuko, and will be able to pass turn, having the first advantage in life now, up 3 life to 2, and a commanding presence on the front line. Tengen is going to step back, and it's going to be a full back row push of all the Tandros, as it's just Nezuko and Tengen. Still no raid Tandros to be found, as everything is going to just be blocked out. And we hit a raid Razor on our last attack, raiding it over, and then going to be popping one of the Tandros. So I think we are in pretty commanding position here. We just need to find one way to remove a Tandro on the opponent's front line, and this just might be game 2. I'm going to play a copy of Razor's Nen Beast on the energy line, using Bisky's ability to switch a resting and sideline to draw a card, keeping us at 5 required energy. It's now going to be playing a copy of the color Razor, sideline the Nen Beast, switching Tandro to resting, and stacking the Nen Beast underneath our number 13 on the front line. We'll use the last AP to raid the Razor, which will take care of the Nezuko, and this should be enough to end the game, swinging in and hitting a non-trigger, and the last one we'll get through for game 2. Well, 2 rounds in the book and only 1 round to go before we see if we have our first undefeated 3-0 champion of the Union Arena deck discussion videos. And the final matchup goes in another yellow versus yellow matchup. It will be our Razor deck taking on the yellow Stern Ritters deck from Bleach. The Stern Ritters deck is more of a slept-on deck for the Bleach set, as it didn't really get any new support out of the Bleach binder that gave a lot of other power options to the other decks in the Bleach set, such as the Hitsugaya and Zaraki deck, which is still seeing top play in our current meta. Being able to go first against this deck, as the Raid Yahabaha, the big boss of the deck, has to get up to 6 required energy, whereas we only need to get up to 5 to play our Razor, means that we can go first and play aggressively early on here. Opponent has to take an extra draw here, but able to play an Astronaut, and doesn't get away with not playing anything on their first turn. It's a dull trigger out of life as we swing in with our first copy of Razor's Nen Beast early on here. Just 3 Razor's Nen Beast is all we need. Opponent is going to fill up the energy line with a Jugram and a Roidloid, which can be used as any raid target. We're going to be moving our Nen Beast up to the front line, then playing another copy of the Nen Beast, and then a number 0 on the energy line. Looking top 5 to find any card that we want that is either the Dodgeball Court or a Nen Beast Affinity, and we grab the Dodgeball Court, pitching off the number 13 to resolve the effect of the number 0. Choosing to play the Dodgeball Court here, we're going to use its effect and stack underneath a Nen Beast on our field with a number 13 that we just played into the sideline. Swinging first with that, it's going to hit and draw Uryu out of life, and then a second swing is going to hit an active trigger, and we're quickly up here, now up by 3 life, and haven't taken any really worry here so far. First copy of Yahabaha dropping, which is going to reveal the top card of our deck. Our opponent can choose if they want to keep it on the deck or put it in the sideline. They're going to put a number 0 into the sideline. Raiding a copy of Jugram, which has the ability of Impact and has an ability at the end of the turn, if we activate a trigger, our opponent is able to draw 2 and pitch 1. Play a copy of Uryu after restaining some action points with a final, and then raiding the Yahabaha on top of the Roidloid, instead of taking away one of their double energies. When played, the Yahabaha is going to be able to sideline our Nen Beast on the front line, which will then reset itself under another Nen Beast on the energy line, thus being able to move it up at the start of next turn to provide more damage and pressure against our opponent. The Yahabaha does have the ability to get damage too, unfortunately does not have it, as only 1 card has been sidelined this turn. So we are going to be taking the first bit of damage and hitting a spike out of life, which will just take care of the Jugram, and we'll be able to keep only 1 character on an opponent's line as it moves back to our turn. With an energy line established, we're able to move a couple cards up on Razor's Nen Beast and a number 0 as we are generating 2 energy, but that doesn't matter as one of the cards is the Dodgeball card, as we're able to use its effect by paying an AP and switching it to resting. By discarding a card, we play back the number 13 from our sideline, even though we don't have the required energy to normally play it. Stacking a card underneath it, we're going to play a copy of the color Razor, sideline in a Nen Beast, which will switch the Yahabaha resting, and remain set to resting next time we switch active, and then resetting the Nen Beast underneath our face down Nen Beast on the front line, playing a copy of Bisky with a newly restood AP, and now we can swing in for some massive damage. Swinging in and hitting a non-trigger, then a get trigger Jugram, and another get trigger Jugram. We have not been punished for life once against this deck, and we're already up 6 life to 1 with a full front line, and we just need to get that last little bit of damage to seal up a very quick and decisive Game 3. Reading a copy of Jugram, which has the ability of Impact once again, generating 5 energy. Our opponent chooses to metalize and take out the color Razor, so it won't be able to freely block the Impact Jugram impending. And now using Uryu's effect to swap it with the Yahabaha, putting it to the front line and giving it a 1000 BP boost. Uryu will swing first, which is going to be blocked out by our Nen Beast, and hitting yet another spike out of life to take care of the Jugram. He will not be able to resolve his ability at the end of the attack phase once, and with only 1 character blocking and 2, now 3 characters on the front line, this should be enough for Game 3, barring a crazy turn of events in life. Playing a copy of number 13 and stacking a card underneath our number 13, then the Dodgeball Court to stack underneath our Nen Beast. We'll play Razor and then raid Razor, swinging in for the last damage, and that's Game 3. So here we are back after a randomly generated 3-round tournament, and I am ecstatic with how things turned out with this deck. I do believe that a lot of the wins that we got was a big help by the hand of Lady Luck, especially in the last game against Sternritters, hitting only 2 life, and they were both specials, and the fact that when we played against Tanjiro, they never found a raid Tanjiro. But I do not want to discredit the strength of this deck and how well it performed throughout those 3 rounds, especially in the opening round, taking it against a pretty powerful deck like Shadow Army. With the deck discussion and the gameplay out of the way, it's time to break down the objective pros and cons of the deck, starting of course with the pros. First, it is a pretty low to the ground deck. The deck can get going incredibly quickly since it only needs to get up to a maximum of 5 required energy to play the Raid Razor. You can aggressively put a lot of smaller Nen Beasts on your front line and have them either deal early damage or block and get sidelined, thus boosting the other Nen Beasts on your field. Second, it is extremely consistent. Thanks to being allowed to play 14 copies of Razor's Nen Beasts, the deck is pretty solid, running only 11 different cards in the deck, 8 characters, 1 sight, and 2 event cards. This makes searching through your deck off the number 0 or drawing cards off the biscuit less of a gamble as it would be in other decks in the game, since you don't exactly have a variety of cards to choose from. Yes, you're probably going to see more Razor's Nen Beasts than any other card in your deck, but that's not necessarily a bad thing as they're pretty useful at any point in the game. Third, it doesn't have one singular power threat. Most decks in the game have that one card in the deck that you have to make sure to hold onto a removal card to deal with at some point in the game. Razor, however, doesn't really fall into that category. Having so many different cards in your deck that can pose a threat in terms of BP, using a simple special or removal ability from an opponent's card becomes a lot less simple because you overwhelm your opponent with so many options. Something as simple as a 0-cost Razor's Nen Beast can be the target for removal if it has enough face-down cards underneath it. And now, of course, for the cons. First, it struggles against faster decks. Even though the deck got the win against the yellow Tanjiro deck, it could have easily been a different story if a raid Tanjiro was found at any point in the game. The deck can get early pressure, but it likes to bide its time to get the Nen Beast even stronger over time. If it's forced to play defense the entire time, the Nen Beasts never get particularly powerful and never pose a threat. Even with the Dodgeball Court Sight card, the Nen Beasts played back from the sideline are resting and can't do anything until the next turn. Second, its removal isn't the most consistent. While it never really showed it in today's matchups, the type of removal this deck plays is very conditional. Outside of the Spike special card, the only other way you're able to take care of powerful cards is with the Raid Razor. Yes, you can take out pretty high BP characters if you play your cards right, but if your front line is full of Razors or doesn't have anything at all on it when the raid is played, your raid won't be able to remove anything. Third, it's a Volume 2 deck. We've seen it time and time again that decks that exclusive to Volume 2 sets just don't come out with a lot of power right off the bat. There are rare exceptions to the rule, like Sword Art Online, where both the decks came out and were pretty powerful at that, but the majority of the decks don't get that kind of treatment. Case in point, Bleach with their blue decks, JJK with their red decks, Demon Slayer with their blue decks, Code Geass with their blue decks, and Hunter x Hunter, of course, with their yellow decks. Some of the decks that release are good, but they're not going to be able to compete with the current decks in the meta because they have been power crept and they only have one set to work with in a Volume 2 support set. Overall, I was very hesitant when making this video. I did not think Razor was going to have any type of success with it, as it has been a very heavily clowned on deck in the Union Arena format. It is one of the weaker decks that have come out. It hasn't seen really any support. It hasn't seen anyone even try to do well with it, but the deck shattered all expectations when it got not 1 win, not 2 wins, but the first undefeated 3-0 record in a Union Arena deck discussion video, which is nothing to scoff at. Despite the bad rap this deck gets, I honestly had a blast playing through this. I never expected the deck to do as well as it did, and honestly, I can't wait to pick it up and try it again, maybe in a locals format or something of the sort. And I really do hope the results of this deck discussion video showcase that really any deck has the potential to get a win in Union Arena. Some decks have it easier off than others, but it's not nearly impossible to see a win in arguably some of the weaker decks in the game, like Razor's Nen Beasts. So keep playing around with some of those older decks, keep play testing with some of your pet decks, and who knows, you might see the same amount of success as Razor did here in today's video. But that's going to wrap things up for another Union Arena deck discussion video. We've only got one more video to go before we wrap up this set of Hunter x Hunter, and it's the final yellow deck in Hunter x Hunter Volume 2, and I can't wait to see how well it's going to do. If you have not already, be sure to leave a like and a comment on the video as to what you enjoyed most about this video. This deck definitely deserves all the praise it can get. Subscribe to the channel if you find yourself coming back on the regular and enjoying the content, and we'll see you again soon for another Union Arena deck discussion video.